Welcome, just John. Just John. Welcome to this one. Pleasure to have you with us for a conversation, an open conversation. Obviously, how are you feeling before we start? I like the process of ending spring split and all that. How are you feeling to begin?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. It's always a bit strange ending a split like that when you have you lose finals and then the next day you have to play or the day after you have to play in an event. So unfortunately, not a great EMEA Masters for us either, and not the result we wanted in finals. But it was still a really fun split, and being in Copenhagen was amazing. The crowd was amazing, and that kind of thing just still makes you excited for the future.
What would you say was your biggest take from spring?
From spring until now, or from winter
spring
to spring?
Until now.
I think we're going to be trying something a little bit different coming into next split, and I think that's probably going to be the sort of main takeaway. We're shifting the way we do things a little bit, which should allow us. The hope is to allow us to be more competitive.
Okay. When we talk about spring, obviously, because I want to look into the past and present and future.
Yeah.
When we look into spring, you were the team that was capable of taking down LR on the upper bracket. It was not like a 2-1, it was a 2-0. I believe it's important when Yankees, for instance, brought in the idea. We were on a really good day, LR were on a really bad day. So it was a mix of both, but also there had to be some sort of preparation, and the team looked extremely oiled as you went through the online phase of the split. What was the preparation to take down a team like LR, for instance, as a coach?
It was actually quite an interesting game from my point of view, because we'd been doing a bunch of stuff in the weeks building up to it as a team that hadn't really quite been working, or at least it felt like it hadn't been working in practice. Everything was just kind of a couple of % off in all these different areas. And then on the day, just everything clicked. So to be honest, one of the things you have to do as a coach, of course, is be planning your next weeks. And one of the things that we have as a big problem in League of Legends is that because there's so many variables and because there's not a good way to practice other than playing scrims are very, very different. And so you have to be quite flexible, because the problem that you have in competitive is the problem that you probably should be working on. And the problems that you have in scrims might be different. They might be the same, but they might be different. So actually coming into that LR game, obviously as a staff, we prepped as well as we could around the draft. And the big advantage for us is that normally when they play us, they keep a lot of things, building up to the finals, they keep a lot of things hidden, which is obviously what you should do. And they do that really well. And they have incredibly good preparation coming into all best of fives, including in EMEA Masters. But this one, I think Jankos was right. They had a little bit of an off day, but also they'd maybe took it a little bit lighter because they'd just been winning absolutely everything. So it was kind of a combination of factors. But actually coming into the day, I was thinking, how do I rephrase the same thing that we've been trying to work on for 2 weeks because it's still not working? And leaving the day, it was like, well, okay, suddenly it's working. So how can we make sure it's working in practice, not just on stage or in competitive?
I gotta make this question. This is a hard question, regardless of how we look into it. EMEA Masters, you had to face LR as soon as you jumped to elimination bracket. But for instance, when you look into the groups, you guys were clean. You took down GK, for instance. This is not an easy team. This is not even close. Do you think if you didn't meet LR on the first round of elimination, NORD would go really far?
I mean, it's impossible to say. I do think so, but
what's
you
your
can't
feeling?
really.
I know you want to be correct, but what's the feeling?
Again, I'll split this up. Like from a performance and from a coaching point of view, you have to just take that and say, like, that happens. Things happen. We weren't good enough. Don't worry about it. From a personal point of view, I think we would have gone quite far. I think we had, of the teams that did scrim us who were still in the tournament, we had very good results against a lot of them. I think that stylistically, the spring roster and the winter roster matched up really poorly against LR as well, which I think you could see from the way that all our worst games were against them, and I think some of their best games were against us. Yeah. So I think it was always going to be a tough stylistic matchup for us. But that's one of the things with singular elimination is there's just so much randomness that goes into it. So you kind of, when you're making decisions from a performance point of view and thinking about, okay, what would we need to change? It might be that you have to say, okay, we just got unlucky with the draw, but generally you want to be approaching it more from if you want to do a deep run, you have to be able to beat everyone. So it's kind of a bit of both. It depends which side of me you ask.
It sucks, but I always want to get like your personal feeling of, man, if LR wasn't our first team, we could have made some damage.
I think I'll say it like this. I think the team that we had the least chance of beating in a best of 5 is LR, or was LR. So
I mean, there's a curse going on.
Yeah, I mean, like I say,
that is a question I have for you, the curse of finals. But
yeah.
We'll go there further on. We'll go further down the line, because now I want to make the question. You have the jersey, which means you're going to be staying with NORD for next split.
Yeah, that's the current plan.
Okay.
There's still obviously...
For anyone who's watching, by the way, this has been recorded a while before the announcement, so I have no idea what I'm about to listen. I'm just, trying to feel my way around this. So if you are with NORD, you're the coach, can you tell me if there's any changes on the roster for NORD moving into summer?
Yeah, we're actually making, 3 changes. Although actually all the people who are on NORD have been on NORD before. So that's where we're at the moment. So we're keeping top and jungle. It's Visitachi and Yankos. And then we're having Treats back in support and Hido back in AD carry.
Who was the AD carry?
Hido. He was the NORD AD carry from, 2 years ago now.
Okay.
And then the big one that will change is that Freddy is going to be moving, Noe is going to be moving to a co-streaming position. And we're going to have Zwairu come in mid lane.
This is a massive team. I'm just getting my head around this. Okay. Big question. I've made this question to Nemesis on EMEA Masters. And I want to ask you the same, because you're now making changes, even with all that experience moving into summer, which I believe is the most important split of the year. Also, finals for NLC are going to be huge, so you want to be there, obviously. And you want to win EMEA, because I have some information that EMEA summer is going to be huge as well. So you need to go there. When you make this sort of team, like a super team, you have such little time to work to face someone who is a super team and is so oiled and ready and is dominating EMEA completely. What is your main focus, making sure that these high-profile agents will work together?
I mean, that actually is my main focus. It's not going to be about necessarily learning anything about the game or improving. I mean, we will do individual work. Still haven't set up the coaching structure yet, but I'm looking for someone to do individual work with the guys to make sure that that's kind of ticking over as well. But the main focus is going to be getting people on the same page and making sure that we can all follow one call, whatever call that might be. And then afterwards, we can have that disagreement where someone's seen the game completely differently because they also have a decade of experience and just think about the game in a different way. So that's going to be my main focus is working out how we want to get all on the same page as quickly as possible. Because like you say, I mean, LR have been together since last November, right? I mean, only for a few bits in last year, but still they've got a huge leg up in that sense. So we're going to have to find other ways to claw back the difference.
Okay. What makes a super team click? Because we've seen super team attempts on LEC, even NA, LCS. We've seen a lot of attempts, and most of the times they fail. LR found the secret recipe. What do you think is the recipe for a super team to click? Because there's a lot of personalities, for instance, clashing.
I think probably there's a different answer depending on the team, unfortunately, which isn't exactly a great answer, depending on the group of 5 players.
Yeah.
But for me, the really big thing is that even though we all see the game very similarly in the competitive area, everyone has very similar understandings, it's not actually the same, and that can make real problems. And so tackling that early on and making sure that we don't have to agree on how the game is played. Because that's something that I think, especially with the short time frame, is important. we don't need to agree on how the game is played. We don't need to agree on what we should do in a theoretical situation. We need to find a way so that we do the same thing in the game. And then afterwards, we talk about it. So, for example, in the first split, we tried a few different things. It's like, okay, what happens if Santorin is the one who runs everything? What happens if Treats is the one who runs everything? And everyone else just disagrees with the call and then does it. It's like that Jeff Bezos thing, disagree and commit, like we have to just do the thing sometimes. And so making sure that very early on we build that kind of culture that's happy to do that, and we're all going to follow this call, and maybe we all die, maybe we lose the game, and maybe you think, I knew that was going to be bad, but that's just what's going to have to be there. And I think as long as you have those open conversations about it, and you don't kind of just see what happens and hope a structure kind of materializes out of nowhere, I think that's the best way to try and get success. But it's also to do with the roster building. And I think that's one of the things with LR, that the roster building, not only did they get along well, but actually, as it happens, or maybe on purpose, it's also really well structured in terms of not too many voices, but enough voices, all those kind of things. You can't have no people, you can't have 5 people talking, so finding that balance, I think, is important as well. And that's something I think that we struggled with a little bit last split, which is what showed a difference in the high pressure knockout games compared to the online games, because we didn't quite have that same voice, that same one idea of what we were going to do. So that's definitely going to be a thing going forward, and something that we wanted to address with the way that the roster is constructed now.
I think you're probably testing this out, obviously, with this new roster, but who's going to be the shot caller? Because I'm going to expand on this question. Even on CS, for instance, and even when you look into League, the person who's shot calling, sometimes doing that lowers down your game level. For instance, when you see Nemesis calling non-stop, it's going to affect your gameplay, because your mind has to be all over the place and making sure the team is over there. When I saw LR versus NORD on EMEA, Jankos was a little bit more quiet. He needed to focus, but the calls were not being done. It is a management like on CS. If you're the opper and if you want to be the shot caller, good gracious, good luck. Unless you're
good luck.
Good luck. So to you, who's going to be the shot caller for now, and what are you testing? I'm being invaded by a cat. Give me a second. There you go. This is Cat. Okay, so who's going to be the shot caller?
Well, the way that the team was constructed, but we're not actually committed to this until we start, is that having Treats back, that's one of the main reasons of having him back, is that, like you say, I think Nash is really, really good as a support player, and also finds some incredible engagers, as well as has a really, really good lane phase. But one of the things that Treats does bring is he's just so sure of the plays that he wants to make. But one of the other advantages of bringing someone like Zwairu is that we can have a kind of, I was thinking, I'm still in the mindset of like a normal media interview, where I was thinking like, I don't want to share too much about what we're doing. It's like, but we're streaming all this anyway, so anyone can watch this. We wanted to have Zwairu here as well, because I think one of Treats' potential weaknesses around how he sees the game is that he's very on the kind of AL hype train of high pressure, fighting all the time and that kind of thing, which, if you are those players and if you are good enough, can be insanely good and is really, really fun to be a part of. But I do think we also need some people who say, no fighting now, like I need to deal with this wave, like I need to push this wave on a side lane and that kind of thing. And I think the side laning was something that No Way struggled with the most, because of course that's the biggest difference as a mid laner between competitive and solo queue, is basically like how you side lane and how you team fight when everyone's all more coordinated. So that's kind of how we're approaching the roster build. But once we start working together, maybe that changes, maybe that flips round. But that's the current thinking, is that Treats will be the primary shot caller, and this time we also have more people to rein it back a bit where necessary. So we had Jankos and Inax last time doing that same kind of dynamic, but this time it's a bit easier, I think, if it comes from someone in the lane.
Let me hit you with this one. Expectations. I need to know.
I mean, the big thing for me,
big boss, be honest.
I mean, look, the big thing for me, one of the other reasons why it's beneficial for us to swap this roster around and have No Way specifically moving to a co-streaming position, is that when he's there, like in the team, he is the best person to have on a team. Like, he is so chilled, he gets everyone getting along better, everyone has more fun because Freddie's there, and it's just absolutely fantastic. But the downside that we have is that he is a full-time streamer who needs to stream also in German and needs to do all the stuff that goes with that. And his kind of brand as the streamer is that he's always on. He's just always streaming. So I think last year, for example, he streamed something like 360 days out of 364, obviously. So that shows you that shows you this level of his commitment. But the downside of that is that the team stuff has to kind of come second, and so there's not really time for us to be talking off stream about drafts or be doing meetings that aren't so interesting for a stream. And also we can't scrim all that much because he needs to have time to do other things. So he would literally finish a scrim set, which most players have kind of done-ish by then, and then stream for like 7 hours afterwards. So it was pretty brutal, and I think it was fantastic, like I said, to work with him. But this new roster will allow us to kind of approach it as full-time, as a full-time team, which I think will make a big difference. So we're hoping that, plus the new dynamic that we're looking to build between the players, is the thing that finally pushes us over the top. Because I mean, as with every split, this roster is put together to beat LR. Like, so should everyone in the NLC. But like, so should everyone in EMEA apparently. But that's what we've been trying to do. So we're still trying to do the same thing. And there's a lot of different factors that have gone into that all year. Like all the roster changes that we made before, we didn't have a choice about them. Like those players got different offers, all those kind of things. And so still, of course, like we're not in a massive financial position or anything like that. But the goal is to make this rivalry a real rivalry, because every time people say that, I always get a bit embarrassed, because it's like, yeah, we have to beat you at least once in the best of 5 before we can call this a rivalry.
Finals is always the 3-0 curse. We talked about this before. Yeah, the curse. And I'm gonna wrap it up with this, because I saw something that I was so happy in Denmark. People sometimes talk about NORD being like a content team or just a retirement house, blah blah blah. But when I saw Chachi on stage before he took the MVP of the split, he was thirsty. He was telling me, I'm going to win this. He was so thirsty. I had some convos with Yankas. He still has it. He still has the drive. So what do you have to say about all those statements of this is like retirement house, and with this sort of roster with treats coming back as well? I believe the thirst is there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, anyone who says that, I feel like hasn't watched any of our games from the player's point of view, because it's so obvious, just like with rookies after like a loss, how hard it hits everyone. Any loss, I mean, obviously the ones in finals and in EMEA Masters, but even like losing a game, you can tell like people don't really want to let that kind of thing slide. So I think anyone who says those kind of things hasn't watched from the player's perspective, because from my point of view, it's been, every player obviously is different, but there's no difference with these guys to people who are like just on the cusp of getting into the LEC that I've worked with before, who have only been doing it for a couple of years. So there's not, how they deal with it maybe is slightly more mature, but it really, really hits hard, and no one wants to lose, especially, what is it now, 3 times in knockout games. My Leaguepedia should just say like result lost to LR, result lost to LR. Like, it'll just be that so far. So that's got to change. At least if we're going to lose, we lose to someone else. But the goal is to not lose and get some wins finally.
Okay, hey, good to know. I'm really happy with this roster, and also, by the way, this is looking clean. Best of luck, just John. Let's see if the curse is broken. And I mean, you have the team for that. It's up to you, Fox. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Cheers.